Moscow, 1928. A 21-year-old Yakov Dzhugashvili has reached his breaking point. He has spent his entire life in the shadow of a father who was never there. Not for his childhood, not for his struggles, not for a single moment that mattered. He came to Moscow as a teenager, hoping things would be different. They weren't. And now, after one final argument over a girl he loves, a marriage his father forbids, something in him breaks. He has nothing left to prove, and no one left to prove it to. So he makes a decision. He shoots himself in the chest. He survived. He had aimed for his heart and missed by inches. After months of recovery, he finally opened his eyes. His father was nowhere to be seen. And when Stalin did respond, it wasn't relief or guilt that came through the door. It was mockery. He dismissed the attempt entirely, laughing that his own son couldn't even do that right. Yakov said nothing. He recovered in silence. And when he was well enough, he married Zoya anyway. But to understand why a man puts a gun to his own chest, you have to go back to the beginning. Yakov Dzhugashvili was born in 1907 in Georgia. His mother, Kato, was gentle, quiet, deeply loved by everyone who knew her. She died of typhus when Yakov was just 8 months old. He never got to know her, not even a memory. From that moment, he was passed around. Relatives, aunts, a grandmother, anyone who would take him. Stalin, then a young revolutionary constantly running from the Tsar's secret police, was in and out of prison, in and out of exile. There was no room for a baby in that life. And so Yakov grew up with a father who existed more as a rumor than a presence. When Stalin finally rose to power and summoned Yakov to Moscow, the boy who arrived was quiet, sensitive, deeply hopeful. He had spent his entire childhood being told his father was a great man. He believed it. He wanted nothing more than to stand in front of that great man and be seen. What he found instead was a stranger. Stalin had remarried. He had new children, Vasily and Svetlana, who grew up inside the Kremlin walls, who sat at his table, who heard his voice every day. Yakov had none of that. He spoke Russian with a Georgian accent, which Stalin apparently found embarrassing. He was quieter than his half-siblings, less impressive on paper, less everything Stalin seemed to value. He tried anyway. He studied engineering. He worked hard. He brought home grades, ambitions, efforts, all of it laid at his father's feet like offerings. Stalin barely looked down. There was no cruelty in the dramatic sense, no beatings, no public humiliation. What Stalin gave his oldest son was somehow worse than that. Indifference. The kind that makes a child wonder whether they exist at all. The kind that follows a person into every room they ever walk into for the rest of their life. Yakov was 21 years old when he finally stopped wondering. You already know what happened next. June 22nd, 1941. At 3 in the morning, without warning, without a declaration of war, Nazi Germany launched the largest military invasion in human history. 4 million soldiers crossed into Soviet territory simultaneously. The border didn't hold. Nothing held. Within days, entire Soviet armies were surrounded, cut off, destroyed. Stalin's response was silence. For 11 days after the invasion began, he disappeared from public view entirely. The country was burning, and its leader was nowhere to be found. But his son was. The moment war broke out, Yakov Dzhugashvili enlisted. He didn't have to. He could have stayed back. He could have used his father's name to find a safe posting far from the front. That name alone could have kept him alive. He didn't use it. He requested frontline duty. He wanted to fight. Some historians say he genuinely believed in the cause, but those closest to him understood something simpler. This was his chance. His final chance to do something so undeniable, so visible, so impossible to ignore that even Stalin would have to look up and acknowledge him. He went to war the way he did everything else in his life, quietly, seriously, trying to be enough. He was sent to the front as an artillery officer. The situation he walked into was catastrophic. The Soviet military in the summer of 1941 was in complete collapse. Units were surrounded before they even knew where the enemy was. Communication lines were cut. Commanders were making decisions with no information, no support, no way out. Yakov's unit was one of them. Somewhere near Vitebsk, in the chaos of those early weeks, his unit was encircled. The men scattered. Some fought through, some died, some surrendered. And Yakov, Stalin's son, the boy who spent his whole life trying to earn one word of approval from his father, was taken prisoner by the Germans. He was 33 years old, and somewhere in Moscow, the most powerful man in the Soviet Union was about to find out. At first, Yakov was just another prisoner, dirty, exhausted, one of hundreds of thousands of Soviet soldiers captured in those catastrophic early weeks of the war. The Germans processed him like the rest: name, rank, unit. And then someone looked closer at the name, Dzhugashvili. It took a moment to register, then it did. The man sitting in the dirt, in a torn Soviet uniform, was the son of Joseph Stalin. The reaction was immediate. Yakov was pulled from the general prisoner population and transferred to a separate facility. He was interrogated personally by German intelligence officers. He was photographed. He was studied. The Germans understood almost instantly what they had, not just a prisoner, but a weapon. Within weeks, leaflets were being dropped over Soviet lines. Photographs of Yakov, alive, standing, apparently cooperative, raining down on Soviet soldiers from German aircraft. The message was simple and deliberate. Even Stalin's own son had the sense to surrender. So should you. Yakov reportedly refused to cooperate with the propaganda. He refused to make statements against the Soviet Union. He refused to be used. But the photographs existed whether he cooperated or not, and the Germans used them anyway. Back in Moscow, Stalin found out. His oldest son, captured. His face on German leaflets. His name being used as a weapon against the very army Stalin commanded. What followed was not what any father would do. Stalin had Yakov's wife, Yulia, arrested, not because she had done anything wrong, but because in Stalin's world, a soldier who surrendered was a traitor, and the family of a traitor had to be punished. She was sent to a labor camp. Their daughter was left without both parents. Stalin had issued Order 270 at the start of the war, declaring that any Soviet soldier who surrendered was a traitor to the motherland. There would be no exceptions, not even for his own blood. Then came the offer. The Germans proposed a trade. Field Marshal Friedrich Paulus, the highest-ranking German officer ever captured by the Soviets, taken after the catastrophic German defeat at Stalingrad, in exchange for Yakov, a field marshal for a lieutenant, a German legend for his own son. Stalin's answer was short, precise, and completely without hesitation. I will not trade a marshal for a lieutenant. His son would stay in that camp, and Stalin would go back to running his war. Yakov Dzhugashvili now knew. His father had been given the chance to bring him home. A straight exchange, one man for one man. And the answer was no. There would be no rescue, no negotiation, no second offer. He was transferred to Sachsenhausen, a high-security German concentration camp north of Berlin, a place reserved for prisoners the Germans considered special, political prisoners, high-value targets, people they wanted to control. Yakov was put in a block with British and Polish officers. By most accounts, he kept to himself. He was quiet. He ate little. He argued occasionally with other prisoners, small tensions that prison life produces, but mostly he was a man who had gone somewhere inside himself that nobody else could reach. Think about what he was carrying. He had spent his entire childhood being invisible to his father. He had survived a suicide attempt. He had gone to war specifically to prove himself. He had been captured, humiliated, used as Nazi propaganda without his consent. His wife had been arrested, his daughter left alone. And then his father, the one person whose single word could have ended all of it, looked at the offer and walked away. By the spring of 1943, people who knew Yakov inside the camp described a man who had quietly stopped fighting. Not dramatically, not loudly, just a slow, steady withdrawal from everything around him. April 14th, 1943. What happened next has never been fully agreed upon. What we know is this. Yakov approached the restricted zone near the camp's electrified fence. A German guard ordered him to stop and step back. Yakov did not stop. The guard fired. Yakov fell against the fence. He was 36 years old. Now, what actually happened in those final seconds depends on who you ask. The most widely accepted version among historians is that it was deliberate, that Yakov walked toward that fence knowing exactly what would happen. That after everything, the childhood, the suicide attempt, the war, the capture, the refusal, he simply made the same decision he had made in that Moscow room 15 years earlier. Except this time, there was no missing. The other version is simpler, that it was a spontaneous act, an argument with guards that escalated, a moment of anger rather than despair, that there was no grand decision, just a final flash of defiance from a man who had been pushed past every limit a person has. Both versions agree on one thing: he walked toward that fence. He did not walk away. In Moscow, Stalin was informed. There was no public announcement, no state funeral, no moment of mourning from the most powerful man in the Soviet Union for his oldest son. Yakov's death was treated the way his life had been treated, as something that didn't quite fit, something to be filed away and moved past. Stalin never spoke publicly about Yakov again, not once. At the beginning of this video, we told you that most fathers would burn the world down for their son. Joseph Stalin had an entire world at his disposal: armies, diplomats, power that most men can't even imagine. He used none of it. Yakov Dzhugashvili spent his whole life trying to be seen by one man. He survived a bullet. He survived a prison camp. He survived being used as a weapon by his country's greatest enemy. The only thing he couldn't survive was his father's indifference. Some men leave a mark on history through what they built. Yakov left his through what was never given to him.